You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
If you want to be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibility. Find your power, passion, and purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. It's right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live the dream. Let's slay your goals, let your greatness flow with inspirational perspective.
Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach right here on WBON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. Well, good Sunday morning, August 29th. Man, it seems like this month, what a summer. The summer's almost over. Seems like the summer is basically just flown on by. Time keeps moving. And the biggest question I have is, as time moves, are you accomplishing what you've committed to accomplishing? Because that's I suppose, the unforgiving thing about time is we can't get it back. And because we can't get it back, then are you living with the time you have in this moment right now, fully honoring your commitments, but not just your commitments, your purpose on the planet, your purpose on the planet. And I got this thing, like I've been thinking about it because in the past, I probably would have told you that this was fear. And it is an element of fear, but I've distinguished it down to something a little different. And I believe that it's how. If there's anything that gets in the way of us doing exactly what it is that we've said, that we've committed to, that we desire to do, it would be the how. And I'm not talking about the little things, but here's the tough part. I think sometimes it's hard for us to stay committed to the little things that we know how to do. So I know, quote unquote, how to eat right. I mean, I know what to do. I have that knowledge, but I find that difficult. Or I know how to go to the gym. Like I know where the gym is. I know how long it takes to get to the gym. I may not know what to do when I get there, maybe. But I would say half the battle is showing up for most of us, right? Just showing up. I venture to say that if you get there and you don't know what to do, somebody there probably could show you. And many of us, we have desires for love, desires for relationship, or places that we want to see the relationships that we're in go. And we have no idea how. And so because there's this gap between where we are and where we want to be, many of us stand on the edge of that gap and we never take the leap because what we're waiting for is all the ingredients and the formula for exactly how we should land after we take the leap. And some of us, we even want guarantees that it's going to be absolutely better, that everything is going to progress, and that I'll find myself in a much better situation than I find myself in right now, today. So many of us, we give up on living great lives because we're so enrolled in the goodness of life as it stands today. So first thing for you to write down is, are you living with an attitude of gratitude? Like, are you really truly living with an attitude of gratitude? Because what sense does it make to try to tap into deep faith when you're not even grateful? I mean, you already have a psyche of loss, so you're not going to jump. We know you're not going to jump. You can think of all the bad things that have happened after a jump. You're not about to jump because you're not even present to the many blessings that are in your life. So first and foremost, step one, it comes to worrying about how, you just got to first really get present to, are you grateful? Now pause. A lot of folks gonna say, I'm grateful. But is that your way of being? Is that really truly your way of being? Right now, the people in your life, like, are you really truly grateful for them? And have you expressed that gratitude in some way? In some way. Maybe you didn't tell them. Maybe it's just what you did for them. But have you expressed that gratitude? The job you have right now that you hate so much, are you grateful for at least having it? When you get paid on Fridays, do you put that check in your hand and you look at it and you say, you know, I'm incredibly grateful. I'm incredibly grateful for this sustenance that allows me to move my life forward, that allows me to take care of my family, that allows me to buy the food that I buy at the grocery store. See, many of us, man, we've taken so much for granted that we're not present to the everyday miracles. So then we can't call down for the big miracles because I'm not even present to the everyday miracles. Little small miracles like getting to your destination safe. Because there's a risk every time you get into a vehicle. There's a risk every time you get into the car. Are you just grateful? Just grateful for what is. Grateful for your current circumstances because you understand that it could be worse. So number one, do I have an attitude of gratitude? What's important about gratitude? And I always say you should have an attitude of gratitude. Why? Like, why should I be grateful? Especially if things aren't necessarily going the way that I believe they should go. Why should I have an attitude of gratitude? Now, I could just stick there for most of the day, but I want to continue. And here's where I'm looking in terms of gratitude. As human beings, you guys have heard me say this. As human beings, we are most aware of loss. So when I take a loss, the way my mind, my psyche is set up, not just mine, but most of us, the way our psyche is set up is we ruminate about the loss. Man, what if? I wish I had. And the list goes on and on about how we ruminate about the losses in our lives. Now, nothing wrong, nothing ventured, but here's the problem or the opportunity with that way of thinking. If I may, the problem is this. We ruminate on losses, but we give very little attention to what's going well. And so then when we decide that I have a goal and I want to push forward, I want to create something that, by the way, has risk I become immediately loss adverse because most of my psychological focus are on the losses of my life. In contrast, if my focus was on being grateful, then my gratitude would deepen my faith and give me the courage that I need to take another leap. So this is the reason why gratitude is so incredibly important. Because for most of us, our psyche is already wired, our survival mechanism and our comfort zone. So when you're most comfortable, and I want you to hear me out, when you're most comfortable, you're likely in a position where you're present to loss. It could be as simple as losing a parking space. I knew I shouldn't have. Oh, I should have just did that U-turn. I knew somebody was going to take my spot. And then we'll ruminate about that all the way into the restaurant or all the way into the store, like, I got to walk further. So focused on the loss. But if you happen to pull up, because this is how it goes, right? Somebody's pulling out the spot, like, oh, look at God. You pull right into the spot, and for that moment, just for a moment, there's like this bliss and this joy, and I'm connected to the Creator. And before you even get out the car, most of us have lost that thought. In this life, if you're going to achieve anything, but more importantly, if you're going to live a life that's aligned with your purpose, you're going to have to take some leaps. And these leaps are going to be scary. That's just the nature of a leap. It's going to be scary. And this fear that arises inside of you and outside of you, because fear has this way of surrounding you. You won't have the weapons to fight your fears if you do not practice gratitude. Now, there's always a cause for the pause. What do I mean by that? You know what you're supposed to do, but you pause. There's always a cause for the pause. And most of the time, the cause for the pause has a lot to do with our heart and our psyche. How do you think? See, because the pause comes from a thought. And so if I'm not training my mind on a regular basis to be aware of my blessings, and this is why I spent, I'm like, man, I'm counting my blessings. And I told you all, the week before my birthday, that was a tough week. I took a punch on Monday, another punch on Wednesday, another punch Saturday night, and I got up. I didn't change the topic. I still counted my blessings, partly because one of the gifts of working with people day in and day out as a coach is I understand all too well how important it is to set my own tone for the day, to set my own tone for the week, to set my own tone for the month, and not let circumstance and situations do it. The tone for me, gratitude. Gratitude is important because it reminds us of the everyday simple miracles that take place in our lives. So then that way, when I'm looking for the big time miracle, my faith is there to receive it. It's that simple. Last week I'm coaching and I'm noticing that many of my clients are stuck. And what has them stuck is they're waiting on a solution or they're waiting on a recipe for what they're going to do. And they already know the first step. They're like, right, but I need step 2. I need step 3. I need step 4. I need step 5. And most of us, before we take on any type of endeavor, what we're looking for more than anything is the full recipe. The full recipe. And by the way, that's how we've been trained. So it's not necessarily your fault. Because we spent 12 years in school, some of us 16, others, man, maybe 20. We spent all this time being indoctrinated that if you're going to do something, you got to have the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. And when it comes to your life's purpose, when it comes to doing anything meaningful, when it comes to living your life aligned with the Creator, that's just not the recipe. Doesn't work like that. It requires knowing the first step and the first step only. And then taking action on that step. And taking action on that step for many of us, that's the leap. I had one client say, well, I don't want to waste my time. You know, I take this step. What if it doesn't all fall through? I said, but this is a step that's aligned with your purpose for living. How could it be a waste of time? Especially when we waste so much time doing other things. I mean, Americans on average waste about 4.5 hours a day watching television. This is the average American. 4.5 hours a day, but you know, I don't want to waste my time, or I don't want to in any way, you know, give up time on something that might not come to fruition.
My brother, I just told every pastor that I know, and I know some powerful pastors, including my own. And I said, why we don't have a homeless shelter or a place where people can live on the block where your church is at? Why is our elected officials just giving their family?
But you know what? I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why.
Yeah.
The reason is because most of us are pausing. Most of us are pausing. We want the full recipe, because I do believe this. And Chicago has, I mean, man, how many? I used to know how many churches Chicago had.
You know it's thousands. You
per
know it's
capita.
thousands. Come on now.
I mean, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And most of these churches are in some of the worst neighborhoods in the city.
Come on.
But here's what happens. Here's what happens.
My Lord.
Many of our leaders are stuck worrying about how. This is why I'm talking about it today. We're stuck worrying about how. And here's the thing, you know, they say they'll know you by your fruit.
Come on, my brother. Say that word. Come on.
But if you're a leader and you're stuck in the pause, that means that you have other people stuck in the pause. I thank you for the phone call this morning, because you just got me. You just helped me understand something else about gratitude. And this is what came to me as you were speaking.
Come on, my brother.
What gratitude does is it connects you. It solidifies the connection to the Creator. But one of the reasons we worry about how is because of our inputs. And she talked about inputs being negative and most of it being owned by the enemy. Now, whatever it is you believe, it really doesn't matter. Because what matters most is, one, that you know, first and foremost, that we're made by the Creator and that we're connected to the Creator. And the major thing that we're supposed to do is be connecting. She called that out. We're wasting our time doing other things. But then number two, that there's an enemy that is trying to disconnect you. Those are the two things. That's what matters most. And she's right. Most of the media, most of the music, most of the inputs that we take in and day out have been designed to disconnect us. So then when it's time to take a leap that requires connection, I'm so disconnected that then fear takes over. And that's how I take my instructions. The cause for the pause is what I call it. Fear is the cause for the pause. And the only way to overcome fear is the more powerful force, and that's love. And that love, first and foremost, has to be for the Creator. And she said it. gratitude for your life and the Creator is number one. She said it. If my love is for the Creator and I'm willing, you've given me so much and I just want to give back, I'm willing to put my current circumstance and my current life on the line. Okay. You want me to leave my job? That could change everything, but you've given me what I have right now. So if this is what you want from me, then I'll take the leap. Here's another reason why we worry. So now let's talk about faith, this notion of faith. What exactly is faith, right? Because if I have an attitude of gratitude, so I'm present to the many blessings that God has put in my life, and then so I know my life's purpose. By the way, that's only about less than 5% of us, maybe 5% of us listening, because you're listening. And if you're listening, that means you're a little different than most. And so you probably know your purpose, which has you listening. But many of us aren't executing on our purpose powerfully because our major concern is how. I can't tell you how many people have gone through the purpose course, and the thing that gets them stuck, a year later, I'll talk to them. They're like, Linal, I'm so clear on my purpose. You did your job. I went through discover and live my life's purpose, and I know my purpose. I get emails from people all the time. I know my purpose. Thank you so much. But I'm stuck right now because I'm trying to figure out how to go to this next level in my purpose. Here's how. Faith. But what exactly is faith, right? Because, it's a 5-letter word that means a lot. So what exactly is faith? And how does faith really work? So let's break down faith, right? Because if I'm always worrying about how, what that does mean, I think we can all agree, is that I'm not present to the power of my own faith. If I'm worrying about how, I'm not present to the power of my own faith. And one of the reasons many of us don't really like faith, and this, be with me now, because you're like, I like faith, Linal. Listen to me. One of the reasons many of us don't really like faith is because faith doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always make sense. See, a lot of us, we're trying to tap into the power of God and then make sense of it. Or tap into the divine natures of the Creator, and then you're trying to make sense of it. Like, you can't make sense of the Creator. You can't even begin to understand the complexities. Like, why is there morning dew on the ground? Like, how does the Creator manage to do that consistently every morning, no matter the weather? Like, how? I ain't worried about it. I just know He does. I'm not trying to make sense of it. Yeah, I know my science. I know, the difference between condensation and evaporation. But again, it's still a miracle. How? Faith doesn't always make sense. And then the problem is faith doesn't always make sense and it requires action. So now I know what I'm supposed to do and I'm trusting and it doesn't really make sense and I'm supposed to act on that? You want me to act on that? My whole life is at stake. Oh, I forgot that my life is yours. See, it's simple. That's what she was talking about. That's why I let her talk. See, faith requires trust. And most of us don't trust. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust your spouse. You don't trust them at work. You don't trust other folks' money. You get a $20 bill, you like, and it's your brother or your sister. You don't trust. And because you don't trust and you have a habit of not trusting, then that is a major impediment to faith. And faith is the major ingredient to taking the leap. And so that's why you're stuck on the edge. Major definition of faith is Belief plus action. A lot of people believing. Oh, I believe, but ask them to take the first step. I'm not doing. I just want it to all show up. I want to roll out of bed one morning in a brand new spanking car. Brand new spanking. I just wanted to show up. I just wanted to show up, man. Like the children of Israel. You just want to wake up and pick man off the ground and eat. Them days over. You're going to have to do some work. And here's the thing about them. They woke up every morning, man. Think about the miracle of that. You wake up every morning and just pick your breakfast up off the ground. And then, after a few weeks of that, it's like, this all we get? This all we get? We can't get something else? I'm tired of manna. You in the desert eating and you tired of it. Man, what's wrong with us? And we'll laugh at them. We do the same thing. We do the same thing. What's the cause for the pause? For most of us, it's a lack of gratitude. It's like a lack of faith. But number one, it's a lack of connection to the Creator. Because if you were fully connected, you would go when He says go. Partly because you don't want to lose that connection. I don't want to lose that connection. You telling me to leap, I'm going to leap. I don't know how it's going to be when I land, but I trust you. And what's more important to me is being connected than being where I am right now. And just trusting that wherever the Creator is taking me is going to be better than where I am. I might have to go through the valley. See, that's the other thing. Most of us don't want to go through no valleys, man. We don't want to go through no valleys. Like, nah, I just rather stay right here. This is high enough. I don't want to go down there to go up there. I got to go down there first. I don't want to go down there. I'm cool right here. And then later, I'm asking myself, I'm even asking God, like, why haven't you promoted me? Why am I stuck? Why am I still here? Well, you didn't want to go through the valley. And the problem is that same valley is there. And the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the tougher it is. Now you got baggage. You're dragging stuff with you. So now what I want to do is and by the way, not understanding faith is, notice I didn't mention fear. You can call fear the fourth, but fear basically fits in wherever one of those don't. It's ever present. Fear is ever present. And you don't believe me? All it would take is for me to say, I'm watching CNN right now. You wouldn't believe what's happening. If I do it with immense fear, immediately that fear strikes your heart. It's ever present. It's always waiting. Always waiting.
But I want to say that from the Bible it says, faith without works is dead. So
Action.
You have to have exactly. I'm just going to talk about myself because I'm pretty sure the stuff that I've sent you, the word about yourself, that's used in a positive way.
Amen.
I just wrote my first book. Linal. It's on Amazon. It's called Child Support: The New Welfare. And the way that I spell fair is FAIR because the way the system's set up and the way that we treat each other sometimes when it comes to the kids. Now, I've never written a book before, ever in my life. But if fear had existed in my mind, then I never would have gotten as far as I've gotten with, writing a book, getting a book published. Same thing with my brand, the Word About Yourself brand. And I'm not trying to promote myself. I'm just saying, if I would have took fear into consideration, I wouldn't be where I am. So.
And here's what I say. I love what Nate said. The last part, I'll put something on. You can have fear. And I want people to understand that fear is ever present, man. I don't know there's one thing I've ever done that I wasn't afraid to do. And that's what courage is. Courage is acting in the face of fear. And so fear is present always. What we need is courage. And what most of us don't have is courage, which is why fear has so much power, and which is why we sit around worrying about how. Be like a warrior worrying about how he's going to win the battle. And you might just want to pull your sword out and get to swinging. You worried about how you're going to win the battle, win the fight, you ain't going to be living long.
But I leave with that, but all of it's based on the community codes of conduct and the family value system that the black people have to get back to it. And Linal, you know it for a fact. Religion is only a code of conduct.
Yes, code of conduct, yeah.
Someone who is in charge, rulers, put in place to govern the masses of the people. That's all it is. Spirituality and religion are two different things. But I'll leave with that. May God continue to bless, bro.
All right, that's good, man. Art gave me something else there. What I got pressed into is how, so that was good, that last part. Religion is a code of conduct. So it teaches us, what religion does is it teaches us the do's and don'ts. So then, I'm not necessarily, and this is not everybody, so, don't get me like painting with a broad stroke here, but I want you to hear me. Because I have the rules of the church or the rules of the doctrine that in some ways tells me how I'm supposed to live. So my hows are satisfied. By the way, these are very, very, I mean, think about this, right? Most of the times these, religious rules are more so rituals. Once they go into habit, like you're not even present to why you do it or why you don't. You just do it. And so then when it comes time for you to actually make a decision towards an action you're supposed to take or not to take, first thing that comes up is how. Because you've been instructed on everything else but that. Now I don't know how to instruct myself. Worrying about how. So then I stay stuck, and then there's no spiritual growth because pastor didn't have an answer. Nobody else could tell me what am I supposed to do. So I pause. This is why the connection is so important. That was good. Because religion is a code of conduct, ultimately. It's very different from spirituality. And nothing wrong with codes of conduct. We need codes of conduct. So I want to be clear on that. We need codes of conduct, but we also need connection. Hey, man, one of the things that Mike talked about, Gideon. Hey, Gideon, that's a good example because he got marching orders. And by the way, his marching orders were to gather, I think, what was it, 200, 300 men? Can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But it was a lot less than way less than the enemy. The enemy had, 10,000. They get you 200 to 300 men. And with that 200 to 300 men, you go fight them. And he was like, he never asked how, though. That's what I love. It was like, all right, prove it to me. I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. When I take action, I want to make sure I'm taking the right action. What I do appreciate about Gideon, he never asked for the second step. He never asked for the second step until he was there. All right, now we're here. What do we do? Part of what Mike was talking about a moment ago, I posted this. It was a Friday or Saturday. And I just put, somebody needs to read this. And then I put Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And this came up when I was coaching a client who was sharing with me that, Linal, I'm stuck on what to do next with my purpose. Like, I know my purpose. I'm so clear on my purpose, and I'm just consumed with how. And so I gave the client this quote. And I said, what do you, given Dr. King's situation, what do you think this means? And so we began to, in some ways, psychoanalyze the quote, right? Dr. King, his purpose was to fight the forces that may be to ensure that African Americans in the United States of America had civil rights. Now, that's a large, think about it, monumental undertaking. And so if you needed to know the full recipe on how to do that, you probably would never get started. So it would make sense that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had in his spirit a quote like this. You don't have to see the whole staircase just to take the first step. So what I put behind that was stop worrying about how you're going to do what you're going to do. This is a faith walk. This spiritual journey is a faith walk. Dr. Maxwell Maltz talks about this, okay? And in the book, he basically says that every human being has a success mechanism. And the success mechanism is designed to pull us forward, to push us forward in many ways. So he then goes on to say that one of the reasons many of us don't accomplish what we're supposed to accomplish is simply because we have the wrong mental picture of ourselves. So he says, get a new mental picture of yourself. And he has this practice exercise where you get a new mental picture of who it is that you are. So one of the things I want to do this morning is I want to help you create a new mental picture of who it is that you are. Because what we do know is that you're a child of God and that you belong to a wonderful and powerful creator. And then we also know that this creator gave you a purpose and that you serving this purpose serves a much greater good than you can even begin to imagine. The impact that your life has when you're aligned with your purpose is larger than what you can even begin to imagine. So let's just make that a part of the mental picture that you have for yourself. You have a purpose, and that purpose, when aligned with the Creator, has a much bigger impact than you can even imagine. Okay? So more than anything right now, if you're listening and you feel like you for whatever reason are insignificant, maybe there's some insecurities, which, by the way, is part of the consequence of the pause. Know that all of that is just a lie. It's a story. It's an interpretation that you picked up somewhere else. He has this part that I think is incredibly impactful. And he says, the means by which your success mechanism works often takes care of themselves and does so effortlessly when you supply the goal to your brain. So for those of you who know me, you know that one of the things that I'm really big on is goals. Because when I know my purpose, then I create goals aligned with that purpose. Okay, so this is my reason for being. My purpose is my reason for being. My purpose is my reason for living. And so then when I'm creating goals aligned with my purpose, that means that those are absolutely 100% necessary milestones in my life for me to get where I'm supposed to go. Keyword, supposed to go. Okay. So then Dr. Maxwell Maltz continues to say, the precise action steps that you're supposed to take will come to you without stress and without tension. Or, get this, worrying about how you're going to accomplish the result you seek. Let me read that one more time. So when you're clear on your goal and you're clear on your purpose, the precise action steps to take come to you without stress, tension, or worrying about how you're going to accomplish the results you seek. Many people make the mistake of interfering with their success mechanism by demanding a how before a goal is clearly established. So, I don't even know where I'm going, and I'm trying to figure out how to get there. What sense does that make? Like, I don't, and see, and here's the thing, you got to remember why we don't set goals. Many of us don't set goals because we're afraid of failure. And because we're afraid of failure, we don't set clear goals, because if I set a clear, tangible line, then it's a chance I won't make it. And I don't want to deal with that. So I don't even set the goal. But there's some of us do set goals, and we still worry about how. And what he's saying is the precise action steps will come without stress, tension, or worrying about how. So we go back to Dr. King. You take the first step. Now, he goes on to say, many people make the mistake of interfering with their success mechanism by demanding a how before a goal is clearly established, and after you formed a mental image of the goal you seek to create. After you create a mental image of the goal you seek to create, the how will come to you, not before. So what do? Well, he says you should remain calm and relaxed, and the answers will arrive. But what's the consequence of pausing and never really getting to what it is that we knew we were supposed to do? What's the consequence of that? And that's what I want to talk about now. What's the consequence of that? Because I believe that the consequence of this is what has many of us battling with insecurity, and in many ways battling with resentment of others. So let's dig into this a little bit. Insecurities. Now, insecurities come from a lot of different places. It can come from your upbringing. It can come from devastating trauma as a child. It can come from a lot of different places. But many of us, we supply ourselves with our own insecurities as well. So we can't just blame others for where we are insecure. And here's the troubling thing about insecurity. When I'm insecure about something, I project it onto everyone else around me. And so maybe it was put in my spirit to take on a particular goal and to do a certain thing. And I paused, and I never got to it. So now this becomes a place in my life where I feel insecure. And the reason I feel insecure is because it's a battle I never won. It's a battle. It's something that I never won. And because I never won this battle, whenever I see somebody step on the battlefield to take on the same enemy, if I am in shouting distance of this individual, I either one, tell them to be careful now. You don't want to go too far. You don't want to do too much. Now, mind you, I'm telling them to be careful for a battle I've never fought. But the reason I'm telling them to be careful is because I didn't fight the battle simply because I didn't think I could win the battle. And so because I don't think I can win the battle, I don't believe anyone else can. And so what happens is I begin to project my insecurities onto other people. And these insecurities then lead to resentment when I see someone else win the battle. Now, I'm going to let you sit with that. See, because a lot of us, man, we're dealing with things and we blame other folks for what we're dealing with, and it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with us. So I think sometimes we think when I don't take a leap, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just move on. I'll go do something else. But if this leap is aligned with your life's purpose, see, there's only two ways that you can go. Either you're progressing or you're digressing. And that valley stands in front of you. And until you conquer that valley, until you are willing to take that valley, until you stop worrying about how, then here comes a whole boatload of other things you got to deal with. Negativity, resentment, insecurity. I mean, you name it. There's a consequence. There's a consequence. Let me give you some examples. I'm just going to use my own life. If I was still in corporate America, and I was still stretched in a way where I couldn't powerfully do the work that I do today, how do you think I would feel when I ran into a coach who had taken a leap, who had a phenomenal practice, who was taking strides aligned with their life's purpose? Like, so there's only two ways. One, I'm going to say, man, this is a phenomenal example of what I was supposed to do. I need to learn from them so I can go do the same. Or the second part is, he ain't all that. This is how it goes, man. Like and by the way, we do these type of things so effortlessly that we don't even begin to understand what it is. That's resentment. That's jealousy. That's envy. And there's nothing good about those. Like, the root of those type of characteristics and behaviors have no good outcome. They only bring more negativity into your life. So when I'm stuck worrying about how, when I'm not doing what it is that I'm supposed to do, when I don't take on what I'm supposed to take on, when I'm not aligned with my life's purpose and creating goals aligned with my life's purpose, when I'm not doing those things, Facebook stream will go out on this. When I'm not doing those things, then negativity enters. See, because like when forward advancement is progress, and that's positivity. Like, there's only two things: fear and love, progress and digressing. Like, there's, I think a lot of times we forget, like we a lot of us want to just live in purgatory. Might be why they created the concept. That's just a little more comforting. I get to be where I am, and I am where I be. But that's just not how it works. Either you're growing or you're digressing. Either you're getting stronger or you're getting weaker. Where are you right now in your process? Are you getting weaker or are you getting stronger? Are you getting better or not? It's just that simple. And I think sometimes we try to make it more complex. So I've been sitting up worrying about how in my life, to the extent where I haven't taken on the things I'm supposed to take on. I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to do. And when other people do it, I feel a certain kind of way. Man, we can get to a point where jealousy consumes you. And see, here's the thing. Remember, the first part of taking the faith leap is connection to the Creator. And so when jealousy and envy begin to enter my heart, I become disconnected, which takes me further and further away from the leap. Before you know it, jealousy seeps in, envy, and we can't even name it. We don't even know it because most of us justify our ways of being. So I'm not jealous of them. I just think that they should, so we'll justify it, right? Because that's what we do. We justify things. No, I'm just saying. You always talking bad about them. No, I'm just saying they need to, or you don't know what I know about them. So we begin to focus on everybody else. What Nate say his brand is, worry about yourself. We begin focusing everywhere else because to focus on myself becomes too painful. Because if I focus on myself, then I come right back to the edge of the cliff where I didn't leap. And that's what it is. You didn't leap. So you have to distract yourself. And the consequence is separation from the Creator, but not just separation from the Creator. Most of us begin to separate us from the very things that will help us take the leap, because we don't want the leap in our space. If you wonder why people can live and die and not produce any fruit, this is why. This is why. Somewhere along their path, they were supposed to take a leap. They were supposed to take a jump. But instead of jumping, they worried. They thought about all the things that could go wrong. They decided to stay on the edge where they felt safe, back off the edge where they felt even safer. And the consequence now is they're plagued with insecurities. They can barely do the things they knew how to do well. They're plagued with resentments. Sometimes resentment of yourself. It might not even be aimed at anybody else. You just resent yourself. But here's the problem. If you resent yourself, it's going to be very difficult to be with anybody else. A life that matters, a life that I can be proud of, is I got to conquer this valley. I've got to conquer this valley. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. Maybe this is a prayer. Maybe this is a meditation. And then you just ask for the courage and the strength to take the first step. What's the first step? See, because the beauty is, as you begin to focus in that area, everything begins to come back. The insecurities begin to wane. The resentment begins to wane. The negativity begins to wane. Why? Because you're focused on taking the next step. Where your energy goes, your focus flows. Like, that's how it is, man. That's just how it is. And so where your energy goes, your focus flows. And so when my energy is off everybody else and back on myself and back on where I'm supposed to be, back on what I'm supposed to do, back on taking the leap, now you're ready. For some of us, the leap is absolutely necessary, because what you've digressed to, what you've become, is far worse than anything that could have happened if you took the leap. Anything that could have happened if you had just taken the leap. You know you're filled with insecurity. You know you operate with resentment. You know you have a short leash, or a short fuse is what they call it. You know you got it, and there's a reason for it. I'll tell you this, since my mom passed, it's really difficult for me to be with negativity, man. Like, it just gets me going. Like, bring negativity in my, don't bring that. Like, I'm just sensitive to it. I'm sensitive to shame. I'm sensitive to blame. I'm sensitive to, guilting. Like, all that stuff. I'm like, man, stop. That's you. That's your stuff. So, will you take the leap? Will you take the leap this morning? See, you got to know that the how only comes after the leap. The how only comes after you've taken the leap. And after you've taken the leap, that's where the faith walk starts. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not saying that when you land, you might not roll. I'm not saying when you land, you might not fall down. But you are where you're supposed to be. And whatever you experience is only preparing you for where you're supposed to go. I'm not saying that the valley is going to be short. The valley may be long. I've given you all different stories, different accounts of my leaps. Man, I leaped out of corporate America in 2015 with 19 and 21 people on my wait list for coaching. Every last one of them said no. I thought it was going to be a short valley. That valley took me through most of 2016. But it prepared me for something. Maybe it prepared me for this conversation right now. And then you get tested when you're in the valley. You know you can go back to where you were. All you have to do is just take this right-hand turn. Just take a left over here. It's a nice little small path. Takes you right back where you were. And you got to have it locked down in your spirit that, nah, I'm on this journey. I know where I'm supposed to go. I know whose I am. I know my purpose. And this is what I'm supposed to do. Because you'll be tested. I said it, man. I left corporate America. 2 big companies called me. And they called me when it was tough. There wasn't no money coming in. Mr. Harris, we heard you left. Would you like to take this opening? Everything inside me was like, yes, get me out this valley, please. But I also knew it wasn't aligned with my purpose. It wasn't aligned with who it is that the Creator wanted me to be. And what's interesting is every time I said no to those shortcuts, I got a little closer to the goal. And it wasn't until I had it settled in my spirit. Nothing's working. The last job calls and I say, I don't care how it goes. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. This is the path I'm on. And it was like when it was settled in my spirit, that's when the breakthrough took place. The breakthrough in my practice, the breakthrough in my coaching, the breakthrough in my revenue, the breakthrough everywhere. The breakthrough took place and I went to another level. But it wasn't until I had it settled that even if I don't know how to make this work, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put one foot in front of the other and take this faith walk. I haven't seen faith up close like I saw with my mom in her last days. Her spirit, man, was settled. She knew who the Creator was to her. It was settled. She knew no matter where it went, where she was in the valley, and no matter what direction she was taking, whether it was healing or passing away, that she was going to another level. My prayer this morning is that I can just get a little bit of that. Just a little bit of that. Stop worrying about how. And just take the steps that are in front of me in a powerful way. Because what we didn't talk about was the consequence of taking the step. And I'm going to tell you something that I know. The consequence of taking the step is happiness, gratitude, blessings, and more than anything, a brand new level and a brand new connection to the Creator. And nothing on this earth is better than that. Nothing.